Jungguo, the Middle Kingdom. We are the center of commerce and culture in the middle of barbarians. For thousands of years, the fertile Yangtze and Yellow River valleys have fed, clothed, and nurtured us. Foreign caravans travel great distances to buy the beautiful things our ancestors taught us how to make, such as silk and carved jade. Do these jealous barbarians send spies to see inside our city walls? They envy our thriving markets, the elegance of our arts, the grandeur of our palaces. They are amazed by our many inventions and the knowledge of our scholars. Therefore, in this, the year of the tiger, the emperor has commanded we rebuild the great wall of 10,000 li that shields our empire. For just as the dragon protects the pearl of wisdom, so must our emperor guard against the barbarians who threaten the rise of the Middle Kingdom.
Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. So today I have a special whole gem that I want to cover, which is Emperor Rise of the Middle Kingdom. So this game was released in 2002. It was developed by Breakaway Games and is part of the legendary series of city builders published by Sierra. Some of the other entries in the series include Caesar, Zeus, Pharaoh, and finally Emperor. Now, I remember when I was about 12 or 14, I think, so some years ago, I managed to get a copy of Zeus and really got into it. But for Christmas, someone gave me as a gift a copy of Emperor, and I'll be honest, since that day, I've been kinda hooked by the game. I really did play it a lot, and sometimes, even though it's a 23 years old game by this point, maybe even 24, I still revisit it from time to time, and honestly I think it's still good. So even after all this time, I think it still keeps up, and I still enjoy it really quite a lot. I don't know what's about it. I really do feel that it has a lot of flavor around it. The mechanics are pretty good, and the game just has style. It has flavor. I really do enjoy it. Now, this being an older game, if you want to get it now, actually this is a bit weird, but all of the games in the series you can buy them on Steam, but for some reason this game specifically, it's only available on GOG, and I don't know exactly why, but and you can buy it now. I think it costs like $5 or something like that. And in order to fully play it on modern systems, it actually runs on modern systems. You won't have any issues there. But originally this game released only with 2 resolutions, so to manage to fit them on modern systems, you actually need to download a special community patch for it. It's not that hard to set up for gameplay. It was a bit harder for me for recording, but if you just want to play it, should be pretty straightforward. You just need to download an archive with different resolution patches. You pick the resolution you want to play at and paste in the executable and some assets into the game folder. So it isn't that hard to set up. Now the game also has a pretty substantial campaign. Is a city builder, and the campaign is really interesting. Originally this game also came up with multiplayer, where different players will build their own cities and try to compete that way. But today, just to keep it simple, we're just gonna do an open city play. Honestly, just before we start, if you haven't played any of the Sierra city builders, I personally prefer Emperor. I think it's my favorite. Being the last game in the series, I think that some of the mechanics have really been fleshed out for this game. But from what I understand, people have their preferences. Some people prefer Pharaoh, some people prefer Zeus. I personally have only tried Zeus and Emperor. Really didn't get that much into Pharaoh or Caesar. But honestly, before we start, I really do recommend try them out. Try at least one of them, because it's a really unique style, type of game and type of city builder that I haven't seen something similar recent. And you might enjoy it. And again, it's a lot of flavor. All of the games, including this one, but all of the games from the series have a lot of flavor to them, have a lot of charm, and that's actually the main reason I do recommend them. Okay, so let's start. I haven't actually played this game in a while now, so it's a good place to revisit it, but I probably have hundreds of hours in the game. Now, like I said, this game features a campaign. There are 7 mission sets in total. Basically, in each mission set, you usually get to play around in the same city. But yeah, there are quite a lot of missions. I think there are like 50 plus missions, and they are quite interesting. So for a city builder campaign, it's really exciting, and I do recommend just finishing all of the campaign and going through all of the missions. For some reason, city builders nowadays don't really do campaigns anymore, but this game and all of the games in the Sierra city builder series do have campaigns, and again, a lot of flavor, a lot of stories in the campaigns. I do recommend it, so give it a try if you are inclined to do so. But today we're just gonna try to preview a bit the game, show you the mechanics. So for that, we're just gonna do open play, where we can just play a normal city. Now, this game has 3 different periods. The period changes a bit the mechanics of the game, but not in a substantial way. I'm just gonna pick Steel Age because it's the last one and has the more complex mechanics. And for the difficulty level, I'm just gonna pick hard. The other options I'm gonna keep as there are, but for Monument, I'm just gonna pick Splendid Temple. We'll get to see in a second exactly what that does. So this should be fine for now. Let's just hit to the city. and see what we get. Now, when we first go into the city, I recommend you to hit P to pause the game, and first just take a look at the map. So again, this game is a city builder. In principle, the mechanics might seem a bit simpler than the modern city builders that we get nowadays, but there's actually quite a lot of depth to this game. Now, for the building itself, the building is pretty straightforward. You could say it's similar to something like SimCity or City Skylines. Basically, your main resource you have to work around is your money, your cash. And on the right side here, you have different buildings that you can buy. Now, for the buildings, once you place them, they are just there. They don't require any other extra resources, except one exception, that being the monuments. And we'll get to talk about the monuments a bit later when we start building them. But this is basically your city, and this is where you'll have to build it out. Now, the city structure will be pretty standard. We need to set up certain regions that need to do stuff. We'll need to set up houses for our populations. We need to set up agriculture to start growing food for our citizens and other resources. In this game, basically growing food, it's a really important part, and depending on the map you'll have access to different resources, and you could take advantage of them. This map actually is pretty interesting, as we get quite a lot of resources to play around with. You usually don't get this many. But here on the right side you basically see what types of resources you have access to, and each of the different maps will have different resources available. For the resources that you don't get on the map, you will basically need to trade for them, and a bit later we take a look at the trade screen and see how that works. Now, besides resources, you also need to provide amenities for your population. These ones are the same. They vary a bit in the period. When you get to the later periods, when you get to Steel Age, you'll have a bit more amenities available, especially the Entertainment tab and the Religion tab. In the first period, things are a bit simpler. And finally, this game also features some combat. So you can have militaries, you might get invaded, and for that you should have militaries to repel attacks. But also you can go to the map and also take over other cities. Now, this part of the game, it's a bit more simplistic. At the end of the day, this is a city builder, but it's still cool to have that option. Okay, without being said, let's actually go ahead and start working on our city. So this map that we got is interesting, but it's a bit on the smaller side. And that's actually one of the things that I prefer, specifically in Emperor. I find that the other games from the Sierra City Builders series are a bit more generous with the map size, which for certain people that might be preferable, because you get to build a lot and you have the liberty to build whatever you want. But I personally like the challenge of having limited space, because specifically in this game and in most games, money starts becoming such a big problem after if you set up your cities appropriately, and actually the challenge then begins to be more the space itself. In the other games, the space is a bit more generous, so you get to build a lot of stuff, and kinda kills the challenge on itself. But in this game, maps can be a bit on the smaller side, which really asks you to plan out and build your city a bit more well thought out and build it appropriately. Yeah. So, what are the main things that we'll have to build here? Basically, most of the cities in Emperor consist of 3 major zones or 3 major parts, and then some other stuff added to them. Your most important part of the city would probably be the residential zone. This is where your citizens will live, where your houses will go, and stuff like that. And basically in this game, you need citizens to be able to fulfill working positions. So each productive building will have certain worker requirements, and in order to fulfill that, you will need to have citizens. Actually, in the Sierra City Builders, workers are basically your biggest bottleneck usually, so you'll have to limit that. So we'll need to build an housing district. Now, citizens also need something to eat usually, so we'll need to grow our food. There are multiple food sources in this game. You can fish, you can also hunt, but the most common one is farming. For farming, you'll need to grow crops, and we'll see a bit later, but actually you will need multiple sources of food. So you need at least 4 different sources of food. In this case, for this map, like I said, the crops that you can grow vary by map. In this case, we got really lucky because we have like 5 different crops to grow. Usually you would get like 3, sometimes you can also get 1 or 2. So for us, this is really lucky that we got that many. So we'll probably need an agriculture zone where we would grow our crops, and there are also some other crops that you can grow for luxuries and resources. So we could also grow silkworms and create silk, or we can also grow lacquer trees to create lacquerware. The next part will also be industry. So basically citizens will require food and will require luxuries. Food, like you said, you can grow. Luxuries, some of them come from growing, some of them you need industrial buildings to actually create some of the luxury products. In this case, I think we have rocks we can use, so we can extract stone. By the way, most of the map is interactable. So if you're not sure what a certain resource is, you can right click to find out. So this is the copper ore deposit, for instance. So here we can get copper, which we might use it a bit later. And this is stone. Yeah, so this is stone quarry. So we need to also have a dedicated industry zone. And besides these three main zones, so residential, agriculture and industry, there are some extra things that we'll need to add. There's also the government tab, which we'll talk about it a bit later. But here there are some buildings which we need to use in order to unlock some functionalities. But these are a bit larger buildings, so we'll need a place to set them up. We might want to have some militaries, so we'll have a military district somewhere probably. And also there is the monument, which is a really big building, and we'll need to set this up somewhere, and we'll see where we can actually place it. So because the space is a bit limited on this map, I actually want to think a bit about it, how I should place some of the stuff. And the monument is basically a big building that you build as a kind of monument to the city, and it should be a bit, it's a large building, and I think now seeing this position for the monument, I think it's actually a great position. So I think I'm gonna reserve this space for building the monument. So I think I can actually place it now, so I'm gonna place the monument here. Now it will take some time until we actually go ahead and work on it, but I just want to know that I have this place reserved for it there. And maybe actually just to place it now, just to have it, I think I'm gonna build the administrative city here. I'm not gonna build it right off because it has some downsides if we build it now, but I think I'm just gonna reserve the space for both of our buildings. I think it just makes sense to have these two buildings right here. We'll talk about them a bit later. So let's say something like this. We'll talk about them a bit later and talk about how they work and what they do. But for now, I think I'm gonna reserve this space for these buildings. Okay. We said that we wanted a residential zone, an industry zone, and also an agriculture zone. Here we do have some islands which we can use, so let's decide how the bridges will look for these islands right now. Here I'm going to the government tab and trying to build bridges, see exactly where they work. And here basically we could build a bridge here, I guess. And let's say here. I'm using the clear the clear option to delete some of the trees. Fortunately, you have to delete the trees in order to build on top, but pay a bit of attention. Try not to delete all of the trees from the map, because some buildings actually use them, and trees are used in the logging shed to actually generate timber. So when building your cities, try to not delete all of the trees in there. Now also we do have this iron with copper, so let's try to also build a bridge here. Can I make them? No, we cannot make them parallel to meet, but something like this should work fine. Okay, so I kinda like this setup. Now, where should we actually build everything? Now, I think the most important and the hardest district to place will be the residential zone, because you need quite a large part of the map to be basically empty. As for the residential zone, we need a certain setup, and that setup kind of requires a big space to work well. The other parts, like the agriculture part or the industry, we can adjust it a bit, but for residential we need quite a lot of space to be able to build it properly. And honestly, I think a really good place for it is somewhere around here. I think it also makes sense because the residential will be close to the center of the city, let's call it, which will be here. So maybe we're gonna create the residential zone somewhere around here. Now, for agriculture, I think it makes sense to have it somewhere around here. We should have enough space for what we need. And I don't know, industry, we might be able to do it somewhere. Come on. Let's delete this extra part. We might be able to do it somewhere around here, I guess. And maybe keep this whole zone for industry. Here we could have some extra agriculture, and I might want to create another residential zone at some point, but one should be enough for the start. Okay, so this should work nicely. Now, I'm gonna clear up these trees. I think my residential zone should go into this direction. Now, in order to maximize the number of citizens that live in a residential zone, you'll need to set up an defined structure. I'm gonna build it now, and afterwards I'm gonna try to explain a bit why set up in this way, but just bear with me for a second to have it placed, and I'll explain exactly why it works like that. But basically, and let's see if I remember this well, I kind of want the residential zone to go into this position right here. So I'm just gonna place a couple of buildings just as an reference. They probably won't be staying here. I'm gonna delete them afterwards, but this is just for me to have a reference and so that I know exactly how to build them. So this should be fine. And let's see if I remember this correctly. So each residential zone will need a marketplace. The marketplace is the way that you provide food and amenities to your citizens. The marketplace is this building here. For our purposes, we're gonna need the common market square. We'll see if we're gonna cover the grand market square in this video, but that you'll have, it's a pretty big building, and in order to place it you need to have a road at the center of it, like this. And here we're gonna go with this specific structure, and I'm gonna show you a bit later why we need to have this structure here. Now here I'm gonna place these 4 houses, and this is basically where my residential zone starts. Okay, I think I can have a house here and a house here. This should be like this. And here I think I messed up a bit this thing. Something like this. By the way, if you want to replicate the setup, there's a certain page on the internet which explain exactly the setup that I'm doing right now. You don't have to take a look at the video to duplicate the setup. That page will explain into more detail, and you can see the diagrams of the setup. Unfortunately, I don't think here we're gonna have enough space to do the full setup, but let's see. Basically here I think we need 10 houses in total. So these are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So something like this. Okay. Okay, and these are the setup. So again, sorry a bit for for this, but I wanted to make sure I get this right. Let me try to explain a bit what I did here. So these blocks that I placed is basically houses. Now right now they are waiting for people to come in to the city. Basically, when you place a house in this game, it's not actually occupied. You will need to wait for people to come in and populate that house. Now, in this game, each house, I think, starts with having enough room for 7 people. I think is the first level actually. But if you manage to provide amenities for your citizens, these being food, these being services, and also certain luxuries through the marketplace, that house actually evolves. And when the house evolves, it will be capable of having more citizens there. Again, the main blocker in this game are basically people that you have available to work, and this is a way in which you can maximize the population you have available in the city. What I did here is depends on how the services and the marketplace works. So in order for a certain person, a certain house to be supplied with food or luxuries, you need to have those luxuries available, and also you need to have a marketplace. How the marketplace works is basically it generates a worker, and all of the services in the game they work through a system called walkers. Basically they generate a unit which will start going through the roads and fulfill the service in the buildings adjacent to the ones where he visits. So walkers will be generated by the marketplace, and they will start going through the through the roads where they are adjacent, and start fulfilling the needs of the houses they visit. Now, it sounds a lot more complicated than it is. It will be a bit easier when I actually show you in practice. But what this setup does is that walkers have a certain limited amount of tiles that they travel, and this setup aims to maximize that amount of tiles basically. So specifically this size is the perfect setup for certain service industries to be able to navigate and make sure that they are able to visit all of the citizens in the block. So this is the optimal setup that you can have for a block in this game, and unfortunately I don't think we have space to place another one. So this should be it for our city, but this should give us quite a lot of workers to play with. Now you might be wondering, what's the deal with the wall? And what's the deal with this fancy road that looks completely different from this one? Well, one of the requirements for the cities to evolve is something called desirability. So, how pretty is the zone, and would people want to actually live here? Now, desirability basically is boosted by so you can have low desirability where if you have houses near to industrial zones, so certain buildings cause negative desirability, but it can actually be boosted by certain stuff like this fancy road. So this grand way is a way, if something you can place to build to boost desirability in this specific zone, but we can delete it for now. That's why this setup with the roads is preferable, because it makes sure that you'll have enough desirability in this block to be able to evolve the houses to maximum. The walls have a cancelling effect, so basically what the walls do is they make sure that maybe negative desirability that comes from this side of the map does not affect the other parts of the buildings. And that's why the need for the setup. So we have this setup, this really specific residential zone, because we have walkers have a limited space that they need to travel, and we have this wall to make sure that we not lower desirability through the buildings that we place outside of the residential zone, and also the road boosts desirability enough in order to make sure that the houses evolve to maximum. Now, these are just the houses. In this game, houses also need services. These are split into three distinct categories. One is safety, then is entertainment, and then is religion. Now, for entertainment, they don't really need to be inside of the residential zone, but the other two, safety and religion, will need to be somewhere in here. So we now have to delete some of the houses and try to place those buildings. Now, the most basic safety building is a well. This will provide water to your houses. So we're gonna place a well right here, I guess. You also need to place an herbalist stall. By the way, if you have your game paused and you try to delete a certain house, then you need to pause for a bit for the house to actually disappear. For the other buildings, this works okay. So herbalist stall will help with medicine. We also need an acupuncturist clinic. So let's add one, let's say somewhere around here maybe. Then we need an inspector tower. Inspector towers actually are a bit important also in the rest of the cities. Most of the safety buildings you only need inside of the residential zone, but the inspector tower is an exception, and when we try to build some of the other buildings, I'll go into more details there. And finally, we need a watchtower. So let's build one there. Now, one of the interesting things that you might have noticed, if I place, let's say, an inspector tower here just for test, you can see that the design here is different than this one. For inspector towers and for wells and watchtowers, when they have a boost of desirability like we have here, like I mentioned, because of the roads, they will actually evolve and become a bit better. Instead of one walker, they will generate two of them. But let me delete that for now. So these are our safety buildings. Now For residential zones, we also need religion. At the beginning, you just need to have an ancestral shrine. A bit later, we might need to add other types of religions, but for now, the ancestral shrine should be enough. And there are some other buildings. Like I said, we still have entertainment, we have religion, we have some other buildings here, but we don't need to add everything right now. We'll add them a bit later. This should be enough for us to start. Okay, so we are done with the residential district. One of the things we'll need to include here will be stuff for the marketplace. So we basically need a place where for us to deliver food and stuff like that. And for that we're gonna need a mill. A mill is basically a place where food is where the marketplace can go and take food from. So I'm just gonna place the mill here. We'll see how that works a bit later. Okay, I think this should be fine for now. But let's actually go and talk about the inspector tower right now. So the inspector tower is one of the more important buildings in the game, and the reason for that is that certain buildings will need to be inspected from time to time in order to make sure that they don't collapse. So if you build buildings, there are some exceptions to this rule, and we'll talk about a bit later. But when you build buildings, you have to have someone that inspects those buildings and make sure those buildings don't collapse. Fires can also spawn from time to time, and the inspectors are the ones that will put out the fires. So when creating and building buildings, make sure that you have inspector towers that cover them. Now inside here we've already added an inspector tower here, but we also need one for these buildings right here, for the mill and the marketplace. We might actually be able to also fit in here a warehouse, and yeah, this should be fine, hopefully. So maybe let's do something like this. Now these weird things that I'm placing are roadblocks. When walkers actually spawn, and let's actually go ahead and continue with the game, we'll see a bit late, we'll see exactly what roadblocks do. But these are basically a way to control a bit the direction that walkers go into. And now my people are coming into the city. Now, and some of the buildings, you can right click on a lot of entities to interact with them. For instance, we can click on these guys to see that are now coming into the city, and you usually get some flavor for that specific person. But as you can see here, these buildings, so this is spawn, this is an inspector. We can go to the home building, which is this one, and this inspector was spawned by this building. It has now all of the employees, and it has started spawning inspectors. And the job of the inspector is to basically see and make sure that buildings do not collapse. You can also go to the safety tab and see hazard to see exactly the state of these buildings. And now here you can see that some of the buildings are going up. If this gets too high, then that building will collapse and you'll have to rebuild it again. But because we have the inspectors now, this should go over time. We can also see water, and we can see that this guy now is delivering water to our people. And you can see that some of the houses here are changing. Basically what's happening here is that because we are starting to fulfill some of their requirements, they are evolving and adding more room for people. So this is a basic house. It has right now 3 occupants and has an extra room for 4 more people. Now, to see exactly what the house needs in order to evolve, you can right click it and then you'll get to see a message here saying it. In this case, the parched residents of this house need water if the house is to evolve. So we basically need to wait for this guy to reach them, and then once the guy reaches them, there the message changes to say that they are now making improvements. The main challenge of this game is to provide as many services to your citizens so that they evolve. So this again is just a shelter. This is an evolved hut and it will host more people. Now it will host 14 people. And the main challenge of the game is to provide more and more services to your people so that they will evolve, and then you get more and more people and workers that you can use in your buildings. And as you can see, people are now coming in. Now we can also go to the industry tab, and here we can actually see how many people we have available. Right now our employed workforce is 61 people and we have 46 unemployed people. So let's try to actually do something with those people. There's one more thing just to finish. I mentioned before the desirability. You can see the desirability by going to the statics tab and clicking desirability. And white is good, red is a bit bad. Still we need to improve it a bit in these zones, and in order to do that, let's just add some trees in here. This should also make it pretty. Let's add 2 sculptures here and here, and maybe finish it off with some parks. And this should have improved the desirability enough so that all houses could evolve to the max level. You don't need it right now, but we're just gonna keep it for the future. Now, we still need, like we said, an agriculture district, and we need an industrial zone. The industrial zone, I think I'm gonna stick it in here for now. And for agriculture, I think this place makes quite a lot of sense. So I think I'm gonna just start it here. So let me delete these trees because we don't need them. But for agriculture, let's start with food. So for that, we're gonna need a farmhouse. And for the size of this city, let me actually pause the game because people are coming in and we need to provide quite a lot of jobs for them. So let me pause until we have some of the basic buildings there. But for agriculture, we need, I think, at least 3 farmhouses. is basically this building, but besides that we need to add in fields, and we need free spaces to add fields around it. We can add fields up to a distance of 3 from the farmhouse. So we need 3 spaces around the farmhouse. We need at least 3 farmhouses, I think. We might be able to do it with 2, but I want to reserve a little space for 3 farmhouses. And in this game there's also a mechanic around around irrigation, so we're gonna need to somewhere add a pump. And unfortunately the only location we can add this is right here or here, which actually might change my plan a bit. So I don't think I'm gonna add in the farms here, considering we don't have any location for the irrigation pump. We could just have it without it, but I actually want to include it. So we might do the farming somewhere in this section right here. Or yeah, so we might do the farming, we might do it in this zone right here, because we don't have that place for the pump here. So let's actually switch it. We're gonna do it here. But anyways, you need to add in irrigation pumps, and then you also need irrigation ditches to carry the water. These also should be present on the outside of the farms. So I think I'm actually gonna create my farm somewhere around here, maybe. So yeah, I think we're gonna have the farms in this line right here. So let me delete the trees. And we're gonna start with the irrigation pump somewhere around here, I think. Yeah, this kinda looks good. We don't need this access because we have it, so we can have the farms here, I guess. So yeah, irrigation boosts up your productivity a bit. You don't specifically need it, but might be a good idea to have them. And I would recommend to have irrigation ditches at outside of your farm, so the farm can support to have 3 tiles of fields. So that's why I'm having an irrigation ditch, then 3 spaces of 3 on each side to maximize the amount of fields that you have. Plus, let's not forget about the road. So we're gonna have this first farm here. Then we'll need to leave 3 spaces, and then we're gonna have another irrigation ditch there. And for now I'm just gonna add in just 1 extra farm, and if we need more in the future we can do it there. So let's say something like this, and this should work fine. Can we actually... no, we cannot place it anymore, the map limits us, but we don't need this anymore. We're gonna have just some small space here that we're not going to use, unfortunately, but this should be fine. Okay, And these are our farms. So we have the irrigation ditch here, we have the farmhouse here. I mentioned something about the inspector towers a bit earlier, so each building will need to have inspector towers. But the agricultural buildings are an exception. So everything in this tab doesn't actually need the inspector towers, so we don't need to add it for the farms. Okay, we've added the farms. They are getting occupied by employees. Now we should actually add in also fields. And I'm just gonna do one of each and then repeat it. Basically, each different crop has their own growing seasons. So it's a good idea to actually diversify the crops that you grow. I'm gonna make sure that we have a bit more rice, because I think this is a bit more expensive than the other ones. So I'm gonna add in some extra rice. We'll add in some more cabbage and let's say soybean. Have one extra space there, so let's add it. And this should be fine. So these are our farms. Each different crop type will have their own growing seasons, and also they will have their own requirement for certain specific stuff. Usually rice is a bit more fancy on the requirements, but all of them can act as food. And it's recommended for each farm to not have one single crop type, because if you have just a crop type, one single farm can't actually grow all of it at the same time, because as you can see from here, people will need to come in and actually try to grow that field type. If we right click on it, we see that this land is 65% fertile and the production is now 53 complete. So if you have harvested now, and each time at the end of the season for that crop will automatically be harvested. But if you harvest it now, you only get 53% of the yield. So try not to have farms that have just one single crop. Okay, so this is the food crops. One also important resources to provide for our people will be hemp, and for that we need another building, the hemp farmhouse, which is this one right here. This works similar to how farmhouses works. We will place the crop, and basically we'll have 3 different tiles being available where we can place that that crop. I think I'm gonna place the hemp house here just to save up a bit on the space. We don't need that much hemp compared to food, so I think I'm just gonna do something like this. We still are taking advantage of the irrigation field, and if we need more hemp, I'm just gonna try to fit in more around here if I find that we are losing hemp. But the production of food already started, and we can see people are the food is already starting to get delivered to the meal house. We can see we already have 200 wheat in there, or 2 wheat. Also some small level of hemp gets delivered. This is a warehouse. Meal applies only for food. For the other types of resources we need warehouses, and is this building right here. And as you can see, there are quite a lot of resources in this game. Now for warehouses you can actually change certain options from them. You can set a number of a certain number of stockpiles that you want this warehouse to carry. And for us, I basically want to reserve this warehouse to carry all of the necessary requirements for this housing block. And specifically for housing blocks, we need 3 different resources. We need hemp, which we already have. We also need ceramics, which we will build right now. And we also need tea, which we don't have, I don't think we have access to here. We might need to trade. Now, for each resources in the warehouse, you can have 3 different modes. Either they can just refuse that warehouse, so that won't accept that resource, or you can hit accept. In this case, if a certain building has produced that resource and wants to send it somewhere, if this warehouse is free, it will send it to this warehouse. Or you can set it to get, and we're actually gonna do this for this residential district. What get does, it instructs all of the production buildings to first send the resources here. So if there are 2 places available, 2 warehouses available, well, that resource can be stored, and one is set to accept and one is set to get, then the resource will be sent to the warehouse that is set to get. So in our case, we want to make sure we always have a supply here of the required resources, so we're gonna set these 3 resources to get. Now, in terms of the limit, we want to make sure we have space for to have enough space for all the resources. So we're gonna set ceramics and hemp to 12. That will make will give us 24 in total, plus 8 it will make it 42, which is the maximum number of resources that you can have stored in a single warehouse. So this should be fine now, and this warehouse should carry everything that we need for the residential zone. Okay, and as you can see, the food is starting to pile up. We also are starting to have hemp. We could start developing our city, but I think this actually is a really good place to end this episode. So I think I'm gonna do multiple episodes to explain a bit the mechanics of this city builder. There's also, like I said, this game has a campaign which is pretty long, and maybe in the future we'll try to do the campaign together, but I just really wanted to showcase this game and maybe have a couple of episodes to show it to you and explain some of the main mechanics of this game. So hopefully you enjoyed today's episode, and honestly, if you haven't yet had the chance to play this game or any of the games in the Sierra City Builders series, I really do recommend it, and I would suggest you to try them out. Maybe try one of them. If you like the feel of this one, go ahead and get Emperor. But anyways, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.